Hello and welcome to Beyond Top 10 Tennis. My name is Dr. Dr Berge and I'm your host. If you're not familiar with my work or would like to learn more about it, head on over to AIMA International, the first tennis lab of its kind worldwide that is centered on delivering top 10 tennis rankings and is 100% backed by science. So this season, we're embarking on something new, something fresh, what I've been holding back. Changeover segments. We'll deliver how to beat the best players in the world or how the best players in the world are winning with top 10 to Grand Slam differences. If you want more, that's where my 14 books come into play, so be sure to dive into them and become familiar with AIMA International and the 190 plus previous episodes we now have to date. Look, it's a new frontier and I'm no longer holding back, so buckle in and enjoy the ride. Welcome to another edition of Beyond Top 10 Tennis. We've got, I will say, a bit of a condensed episode today, but look, first and foremost, if you've been with us for some time now, thank you so much. We would not be here without you. If you are new, again, as always, I'll encourage you to track back to those earlier episodes to see, look, the beginning, say 50, 60 episodes, really had those foundations, the transition that we took, pushing, I will say, the bar a bit further. And now I'm going to say to the last, probably like 80, 90 episodes, how that's been. But this season, we've had a little bit of a change up with those changeover segments, weaving in. And I'm actually going to kick today off with those changeover segments because they are overdue. Recall previous episodes, they did go, I'll say they were very extensive. We pushed it a lot there. And since today's episodes, it's going to be a bit more condensed with, we've got Qatar on the WTA Tour, Dallas, Amro, and Argentina. So a smaller week that we will build back up. So these ones are actually carrying over from the Australian Open. So, oh my goodness, time has flown. That is essentially a month ago. So I'll say four and a half weeks ago, maybe 5. I'm going to say 4. So it has been a while, but we can step back from a fresh lens. Look at these metrics. So these are the segments that I did those quick analyses on, very brief. So recall those episodes. So I think around, I'm going to say 190, 188, could be 185. We started thereabouts. Look, could be 180 in all fairness. So have a look at the episode show notes, etc. But what I really like about these changeover segments, and I'll say the key data points, the inferences that I picked up, they have set the stage for not only this week, but what's to come. So that's why when I'm looking at the cycle, how players have been performing, these results say a lot. Well, not necessarily results, I'll say performances. Look, they have skewed more so, it looks like, on the WTA Tour over the ATP Tour. That's purely because we were looking at, I will say, more so fluctuations in play. Whereas the ATP Tour more so, we had the top guys, Sinner, Alcaraz, Djokovic, Zverev, etc., performing, I'll say, as anticipated. And personally, I found more openings here from players that were progressing, some that were regressing, and the slight change that we may or may not have seen in the rankings in those coming weeks. So since the last, I'll say, 4 weeks that's transpired. All right, so I'm going to kick today's episode off with the changeover segment. I don't typically do that, but also because I don't want to forget. And then we will look at the Qatar WTA Tour first, followed by the ATP Tour, and do those ranking updates for today's or this week's episode. And there's a lot, but I'm going to try and keep the a lot part under wraps, and you will see what I'm talking about in the coming weeks. All right, first one we have is on Andreeva and Sakkari. All right, when they were playing, focus here is on Andreeva. Note the high ball, the bounce, the use of the heavy topspin. You must choose whether to move back or up to hit in your strike zone. Otherwise, you're letting Ondriva win. Note how Sakari didn't change her position on the baseline, so struggled to form any rhythm. That's how Ondriva is winning. Now, I'm recollecting this match did get a little bit tight, but that just shows just some brief notes about how Ondriva was, I will say, gaining the edge, what Sakari needed to do. But I've also noticed, I'll say in the previous weeks, that slight regression from Ondriva. I'm going to say similar to Swiatek, for example. That's not necessarily bad. What I'm curious about is if they've done the work to prepare for the coming weeks and what's ahead. That will tell us a lot. All right, this one is the match. Swiatek and Muchova. Focus here is on Swiatek. Increased net presence and moving around, hit her backhand cleaner than first round. Following key performance metrics, this is what I want to see if Swiatek is to reach the semi-finals and possibly finals. All right, keep that one because we have another Swiatek one when she was playing Kinskaya. All right, so Swiatek here's second serve, pull her wide, too many unforced errors in the second, overhitting her shots, consistent with other results. Mental hurdle, unable to sustain her level. So I believe this one was when we saw Swiatek. She did get that win, but I think it was one of those score lines where it was like 6-1, 1-6, 6-1, something like that. But that is a big, I will say, red flag at this stage, and I've spoken about that before. All right, Kalinskaya for that match. Pull her wide on the backhand. That was just a simple one. Kalinskaya wasn't moving very, I'll say, smoothly. If you pushed her wide on the backhand, there's an opening. Looks like, I'll say in recent weeks, she's actually been gaining ground. That has not been an element where her opponents have been taking the advantage. Svitolina and Gauff. All right, Gauff here. Note how Svitolina did not take her foot off the pedal, changed to a flatter and deeper ball, first favouring topspin, making it difficult for Gauff to hit her shots as cleanly. This is what I love, and I love Svitolina is back in the top 10 because she can think on her feet. Players, I'm going to say even Swiatek at this stage has been making similar errors and like this Gauff as well. And that's why I'm curious to see how the coming weeks do unfold. And Svitolina, she's really been able to maintain that level. All right, Sabalenka and Svitolina here. Sabalenka opening the court more, making Svitolina run, not able to find that rhythm. It was that simple. When Svitolina can, she attacks from the get-go. Sabalenka, careful not to give Svitolina the chances. Very smart. So I think that's the key. Sabalenka was aware of how Svitolina could change the game up. She kept her foot on the pedal as well, didn't give an inch. All right, last couple here. Rybakina and Pegula. Focus here is on, I'll also say both, primarily Rybakina. Rybakina, cross-court backhand with the angle, sits around the service line is the big difference. Rybakina, tendency to pull up her backhand at times, so that is an opening there. Pegula sets the shot up, but Rybakina gets that one more ball. Too many unforced errors from Pegula. But I think she really learned from that because we've got some good results to share from Pegula's side, or I'm anticipating that in the coming weeks, especially from Rybakina as well. Curious to see if she can maintain that level of play or that new baseline. On to his ATP tour, Zverev and Alcaraz. This one was so tight, neck and neck. It's basically almost what can I say, because they were so close. There's a lot that can say, but I think I was more focused on enjoying the match, in all fairness. Zverev falling off his backhand. Alcaraz's anticipation, decision-making, not as sharp the further the match progressed. Zverev pulling back off his forehand, not using his legs. So look, you've got openings on both parts, sharing how Zverev did not take that advantage. We obviously know that Alcaraz did come out on top. All right, last one. This is the final for the Rybakina and Sabalenka Sabalenka here. Rybakina's angled backhand is a weapon. Attack of the return, Rybakina was stepping up more, and it was that simple. That is the changeover segment. That's jam-packed. I think that was the final week of the Australian Open. I did hold back because we had a lot to catch up on. Previous episodes, I think, post-Australian Open, they pushed that 1 hour mark or thereabouts. And I've been trying to condense our episodes, I'll say ever so slightly, to just make them a little bit more jam-packed. I think some have been successful, maybe not so much because we do get carried away. But I think what's the most important thing to take away from those changeover segments is that irrespective if you are a top 10 player or not, every player has those weaknesses, and it comes back to the data. It comes back to those 8 keys. If you're not familiar, they're all listed out there at AIM International, as well as the resources, so the books, etc., to dive into to not only explain that, but also you'll notice some of those earlier books before, say, Sabalenka was number 1, before Swiatek was winning Grand Slams, etc., Alcaraz, Sinner, etc., it actually pulled the data of then. So we're looking at 5-6 years ago even, and how it was able to project where those players would be if they maintained or if they implemented those keys, and everything, the rankings speak for themselves. So that's how powerful, I'll say, the science is, the data is, the modeling, etc., what we're able to do. The last, I will say, 2 publications have been focused on season metrics, because AIM International and I am responsible for the longest longitudinal analysis our sport has ever seen, tracking the best players in the world. I'm toying with, maybe we will look at the data this season, maybe next season. I've been holding off. Those of you who are familiar, though, I have been working on my fiction book the past, I'll say, not 12 months, because I think 12 months ago was when my tennis workbook came out. So that's available at AIM International, Amazon, so irrespective where you're based in the world. But my fiction book, I started shortly after that. So that's, I think, a big core focus, and why we've had a couple of patches where our episodes have been a little bit inconsistent. As much as that kind of pains me to say, I've been pulled one way, then pulled the other way, and I keep trying my best to make sure I'm delivering the data and the insights here at Beyond Top 10 Tennis. But I am very excited to see what happens with that fictional release, and I will keep everyone posted. But all right, that is the changeover segment, a little bit of a detour there. All of that is wrapped up. We'll see if that does feature in the notes or not. All right, WTA Tour, we have Qatar to catch up on. And I think there are a lot of surprises here. I'm going to say in a good way. We did have some, obviously, changes in the rankings because of this, made things a little bit more tight. Now, I do believe last episode we got up to the second round, so we are up to the round of 16. All right, so if we're looking at the round of 16 and Qatar, I'm not going to do any spoilers, but I think we did see a lot of surprises. I'll leave it at that. All right, kicking off round of 16, you can follow along if you have the Qatar Open site available to you. Swiatek, so Swiatek over Kazakhina, 5-7, 6-1, 6-1 to Swiatek. Obviously, would have anticipated that to be cleaner, but going back to what I said about the changeover segment, this has not surprised me, and that's why I'll say the quarter result, it's not going to surprise me either. Just a little bit disappointed. All right, so next one, we've got Sakkari and Gracheva. Look at this. Sakkari got over Paolini in the second round. Huge. She's got to win over Gracheva. 7-6-6 love. I love this for Sakkari. You heard what I said in the changeover segment about Sakkari. She has had a hell of an 18 months, slipping outside the top 10, really regressing. And this is her finding that footing again and that form, and I'm really loving it for her. Muchova, Pliskova. Unfortunately, look, Pliskova had a huge, I'll say, first couple of rounds, got the win over Anisimova, which was really exciting there. Unfortunately, Anisimova did retire, but Pliskova had to retire in the round of 16, so Muchova did get that walkover. Well, 5-2, she was up. This one was surprising. Kalinskaya over Svitolina. Keeping in mind how close this is, I'll say after the Australian Open, I'm going to say Kalinskaya, she just upped her ante and Svitolina didn't have the legs. 4-3 to Kalinskaya. Ostapenko over Osorio, 3-1. Cocchiaretto over Lee. That I'm going to say that's an upset there. Keeping in mind how Cocchiaretto upset Gorf in the second round, 4-2. So this one was in 3, 7-6, 5, 7-6-3. This one was huge, the round of 16. Mboko and Ondriva, both teenagers still, right? This was huge. Now, before I give you the result, recall, I'm going to say in Montreal. I think it was Montreal when Mboko got the win there. Toronto, Montreal. And she won just out of the blue. Skyrocketed her up the rankings. We spoke about this a few months ago, and I said, this is an anomaly. Let's see if Mboko aligns with the ranking, because she wasn't at that stage with her other results. And I tell you what, her results essentially almost, not all, but I'm going to say 60, now 70, almost 80% now since then, because it has obviously been changing. She has been aligning with that ranking, especially after the Australian Open, pushing her inside the top 20. Really exciting result for Mboko, getting going over Ondriva, 6-3, 3-6, 7-6. That was so tight. I'm looking forward to a potential rivalry between these two. I think that could be really exciting, especially for women's tennis. Rybakina and Zheng. So Zheng did get to the round of 16. So she's got 2 matches under her belt, which is great. And look, she pushed Rybakina to 3, 4-6, 6-2, 7-5. So it'll be interesting to see how Zheng plays, especially the next few weeks, months, after being off for so long with that surgery. All right, now we are at the quarterfinal stage, and this is where the upsets really did happen. But if you're looking at last year's results in Qatar, it's a little bit ironic, because you will notice that there was potentially going to be a lot of upsets here in respect to the rankings. There was going to be some regressions there. But because of how it paved out, that was not the case. All right, so bear with me. Quarterfinals, Sakkari upset Swiatek 2-6, 6-4, 7-5, and that's what I was sharing earlier. Similar to how she was playing the Australian Open. I'm seeing a bit of a regression there in Swiatek's game. And I've started to see the regression probably towards the end of last year. Something's not quite right. I have shared more on that previously, but I'm curious now to see how Swiatek performs in the coming weeks. But Sakkari really did. This is great for her ranking. Absolutely great for her. I'm really impressed. So really good win there. But also keeping in mind Sakkari's former top 10. And if you put that into perspective, if you go, all right, Sakkari, maybe she's playing like that top 10 player she was 18 months ago, roughly. It does kind of track if Swiatek wasn't playing her best, having a bit of an off day, and I think she's had more of those off days lately. Great to see it push though to 3. I love how it was tight, but really good win for Sakkari. All right, Muchova, Kalinskaya, well done to Muchova here, 3 and 4. Both these players are on the uptick this season. Ostapenko over Cocchiaretto. Now, Ostapenko, she made, I think, the quarters or semis last year, so that's why we won't see too much of a shift in her ranking. 7-5, 6-4, but still exceptional, given how Ostapenko has been regressing a little bit from that top 10 recall 12, 18 months ago to where she is now. Still inside the top 30, but still. All right, Mboko and Rybakina, biggest upset there now. That was 7-5, 4-6, 6-4. If Rybakina, because Swiatek, I think, made the semis or finals, I'm going to say semis last year. Rybakina similar or thereabouts. So, or no, I think Swiatek got the win over Rybakina in the quarters, for example. Something like that. I'm not looking at last year's results, but because both these players fell in the quarters, there wasn't too much of a ranking shift. Rybakina she was very close to getting number 2 in the world. And, maybe we will see that happen in the coming weeks. But now, she's closing the gap. So Swiatek really needs to put her foot down. But Rybakina is absolutely within reach. All right, as far as the semi-finals are concerned, we've got Muchova over Sakari, 3-6, 6-4, 6-1. Again, I love how it was a 3-setter. Mboko over Ostapenko. Not surprising, but really aligning with that ranking. So she is aligning, absolutely, Mboko is, with that. Not just top 20, top 15, and she's surging after this. It looks like she's going to become a barrier breaker. The first barrier breaker, I believe, of this season. And we've got... I'll try again. Muchova and Mboko, double M's there. Muchova did get the win over Mboko, 6-4, 7-5. I do believe, ironically, though, because of the results, Mboko's the one that did get inside the top 10, not Muchova. And I think that's because Muchova would have had some points more so to defend, where Mboko, starting from scratch, she had 0 points to defend in Qatar. Just to put that into perspective, because this time last year, I think Mboko was ranked well outside 100 in the world. All right, so Qatar is the only event this week on the WTA Tour. So let's have a look at the rankings to see what happened after that. We're going to be pretty brief with the rankings. We will stay... Yeah, all right. We'll start from 100, but I'll focus on the big moves. All right, so Kruger's back inside the top 100, so she's at 100. For perspective, Bekic has taken a big hit. She's at 99 in the world. I want to say around 12 months ago-ish, maybe less than that, Bekic was inside the top 30. So just goes to show how much I think a player can unfortunately regress when those points are not defended. Look, Danilovic is at 89, so that's a big regression too. She was pushing towards the top 30, was inside around or thereabouts the top 40 last season. Just going through play. Collins, look, she's at 79. We know she was top 10. Putinsva's 78. We know she was top 30. Bulter was top 30. She's up 9 though to 75. She was bumped outside the top 100 for a short period of time. Badosa, look, former top 10. I'm going to say about 6 months ago now, but she's at back 6, so she's at 70 now. Not too many progressions. Look, Haddad Mayer, again, was top 10. She's at 66. So we've had a lot of upsets. Kazakina was top 10. She's at 61. Stearns is back 3, so she's 58. Gracheva's up 13 to 60. Well done. Fritz was top 30. She's up 4 to 55. Krejcikova, we know, again, top 10. She's at 53, steady. Lynette was top 30 or almost. She's at 50. Kudermetova was just outside the top 30. She's at 49, back 6. Look, Iala, she's back 7 to 47, but look, she is on the rise. Yastremska, she was top 30. She's at 44. Just to show how much the tour has had a bit of a shuffle. Right inside the top 40 now. Look, Vondrasova's got herself within reach of the top 30. She's at 37, which is great. Lee's up 5 to 36. Boyson, I have not actually seen her play recently. She's just back 1 at 35. She is hovering there. Look, big jump. Sakari up 18 to 34 in the world. That's huge. I'm really happy for Sakari. She's had a brutal 12, 18 months. Kennan at 30, Fernandez back 2 to 29. Look, Joints up 2 to 28. I think there's a career high there. Ostapenko's back 3 to 27. Kostuk's back 3 to 26. Look, Zheng up 2 to 24. Kalinskay's up 5.23. Jovic's solid at 20, so she's the other teenager to talk about. Look, Navarro was top 10, but she's at 19, still holding on. I'm waiting for her to find that momentum this season. We're yet to see it. Keys, 17. We know she's there because she didn't defend her Australian Open title, but I think she's going to absolutely be dangerous. I think she can upset any of the top 10 players, absolutely, on one of her good days. Osaka's at 16, Torsen 15, Noskova 14, Benchik 13. Both, most of these players have just been bumped back. Alexandrova's at 12 because Muchova's up 8 places to 11 in the world. That's where she was sitting most of last season. But the biggest surprise is, yes, our new barrier breaker is Mboko's up 3 places to 10 in the world. Look, Svitolina is actually the season's first barrier breaker, but she has been here before. So Mboko, that is huge news. And there is about a 200 gap between her and Muchova. But there's only about, there's literally 14 points between herself and Svitolina, so very, very close. Top 8 are relatively solid there. We've got Paolini, Ondriva. Look, Anisimovan's back 2 to 6. Pegula's up 1 to 5. Gorf's back to 4 in the world. And we do have then Rybakina, solid, Swiatek, Sabalenka. That's backwards 3, 2, and 1. Look, Sabalenka's still got that 2,000 point, well, no, it's actually 3,000 point gap. Yes, it sounds huge, but keep in mind, Swiatek did have that type of gap I think it's about a year ago, or maybe it's 2 seasons ago now. But Rybakina's on the tails there. There's less than 300 points, 280 points between Swiatek and Rybakina. That is close. Gorf has slipped a bit, so there is about 1,000 point difference between Rybakina and Gorf. But look, I'm not going to write Gorf off. Absolutely, she can have that uptick. Pegula's having a hell of a season already. And Anisimova, I think look, all top 10 players at this stage are dangerous. I'm also waiting to see what happens with Paolini, if she has that surge again, because we have seen a bit of a regression there as well. All right, so that is this week for the WTA Tour wrapped up. Let's head on over to the ATP Tour, because we do have 3 events there: Dallas, Amro, and Argentina. So let's kick things off with Dallas. I'm going to say we would have reviewed the first rounds, so I want to kick things off straight with the round of 16 here. Fritz, number 1 seed, and Shelton, the 2nd seed here. And it is a 500. So Fritz over Nakashima, 3 and 4. Quarter over Tiafoe, a bit of an upset there, 5 and 1. But remember, Quarter was top 30, big regression. He's been clawing his way back. So that's why it's not that surprising. Kind of like a Sakari story. So good to see, although Quarter was never, I'll say, that high in the ranking. I think he got just inside the top 30 about 18 months ago as well. All right, Pennington Jones is upset Zabritzi in 3. Silic over Quinn, straight set. Shapovalov over Kogovic, straight sets there. Davidic Fokina, straight sets over Michelson. Kekanovic over Paul, that's an upset. That's in 3. Again, Paul's had a bit of a regression lately from top 10 to outside. Waiting to see if he has that uptick again this season. Shelton over Mannarino in 3. He was pushed there. That was tight. All right, quarterfinals. We're going a little bit quicker through the ATP Tour because we've got 3 to go over. Fritz over Quarter, 6-7, 6-4, 7-6. Well done, Fritz, but well done, Quarter, to push Fritz that far. That really shows us how far Quarter has come back from, I guess, where he was, that regression, and he's finding that form again. Silic over Pennington Jones, it's straight sets. Well done, Silic, I guess, pushing through to the semis. Shapovalov over Davidic Fokina, that's an upset in 3, 5-7, 6-4, 6-3. And Shelton over Kekmanovic, 5-7, 6-3, 6-4. Couple of upsets there, but look at this. Semi-finals, Fritz over Silic, 7-6, 7-6. Look, Silic is, I want to say, 38. Pushing Fritz to double tie breaks. That's huge. I love to see that. Shelton over Shapovalov in 3, 4-6, 6-4, 7-6. That's huge as well. Love to see 1 and 2 in the finals. And how's this? Shelton has upset Fritz 3-6, 6-3, 7-5. Look, Shelton, he's really been finding that form, that level of consistency from Auckland. Played, I'll say, relatively good in Australia. He had a tough draw there. But look, he's holding that baseline, and I think that is the most promising metric to go by. So that's actually a positive for both players there. All right, that is Dallas wrapped up. Let's head on over to the Amro. So Amro Open, Rotterdam, Netherlands, depending how you do call it. Number 1 seed is Alex de Minaur. 2 is Auger-Aliassime. I'm going to skip first round. We would have gone over them last week. So straight on to the round of 16. De Minaur over Wawrinka, 6-4, 6-2. But look, Stanley still was able to push, I think, Alex to 6-4 in the first, which is pretty cool to see still. Vanders and Schulp has upset Tsitsipas 6-4, 7-6. I tell you what, Tsitsipas is on a bit of a regression at the moment and definitely needs a bit of a shake-up in his game. Unfortunately, he has been sliding. Humbert over Din Owen, straight set there. O'Connell over Norrie, straight set. Munar over Kakanakov. Look, this is in 3. Kakanakov was top 10 last season, did get in there, but he's regressed since then. Holding on, just looking for that consistency. Bublik over Struff in 3. Greek and Sport over Howells, straight sets there. And Auger-Aliassime over Medalovic, straight sets. Quarterfinals, De Minaur over Vanders and Schulp. This was tight, 3-6, 7-6, 7-5. Humbert over O'Connell, 4-1. Bublik over Minaur, 6-4, 6-7, 7-6. Very tight. Minaur's been very, I'll say, close to the top 30. And Auger-Aliassime over Greek and Sport, 7-6, 6-2. Semi-finals, look, mostly what we would have anticipated. 3 of the top 4 seeds. De Minaur over Humbert, 4-3, and then you got the 2 and 3rd seeds, so Auger-Aliassime and Bublik. Auger-Aliassime, good match, 6-1, 6-2. Really like how Felix's game has been progressing, but how's this for the final? De Minaur over Auger-Aliassime, 3-2. That says a lot with how well Felix has been playing. I think De Minaur's game can be underrated at times, but this is great to see. So well done, Alex, taking home the Amro Open. Very exciting there. All right, so the next one we do have for this week is in Argentina. So the Argentina Open, Buenos Aires. We went over, it is a 250. The other 2 were 500s. Went over the first round, so we'll kick off with the round of 16. Cerundolo, first seed. Darderi is the second seed. Cerundolo over Delayan, straight sets. Capriva, upset over Berrettini. Great to see Berrettini back in action because I know I'll say schedule's been inconsistent with, I guess, how he's been performing. I'm not too sure if he's still carrying an injury or not. Fonseca, he's got a loss to Tabillo. So Tabillo over Fonseca in 3 there. And Chevry over Barunga in 3. Ugo Carabelli over Navone, straight sets. Baez over Boost, straight sets. Martinez over Cerundolo, straight sets there. And Darderi over Bradesveta in straight sets. Looking at the quarterfinals, Cerundolo over Capriva, 4-3. Chevry over Tabillo, 1-6, 6-3, 6-4. Baez over Ugo Carabelli, 7-6, 6-2. And Darderi over Martinez, 7-5, 6-1. So we've still got 1 and 2 in action for semi-finals. 3 of the top 4 seeds left. And all seeds, though. Chevry is the 7th seed. But Cerundolo, number 1 seed over Chevry 7th seed, 6-3, 7-5. Darderi, 2nd seed over Baez, the 4th seed, 7-6, 6-1. So 1 and 2. And look, it did go the way of the 1 seed. Cerundolo over Darderi, 6-4, 6-2. Very, very cool. I guess that's the opposite of what we just saw previously. I love that. So that is great. And that is the ATP Tour results for this week. So let's head on over to the rankings. All right, so Taberner is at 100, no changes there. Wawrinka's back inside the top 100, so he's up 8 points to 98. Medalovic is taking a big hit, 18-point regression to 97 in the world. O'Connell's back inside the top 100, up 24 to 95 in the world. So more jumps here already over, say, the WTA Tour. Analdi's back 13 to 85. Looking for the big movers, or here we go, Hercax, just back 1 because he's 1 place form top 10. WTA Tour is a lot of, say, changes for top 10 that have regressed. Not as many on the ATP Tour, so we know Hercax obviously is 1 that's taken a bit of a hit, slowly clawing his way back from that injury last year. All right, Fuchsovich has a 12-point regression, so he's at 61. Colignon's up 10 to 59. Mpeshi Perigard's at 58. He's back 2, but he was higher last year, so he's a bit of a regression there. Poprin was top 30. He's back 3. Now he's at 53, but he's been back for some time. Look, quarters up 3 to 50 in the world. Good to see. Small movements or a lot of movement either way. Silik's up 18 to 43 in the world. Dimitrov's up 1, but we know top 10 he's at 42, so working his way back as well. Phil's was top 20, working his way back. He's up 2 to 40 in the world. Diallo, he's one I'm watching this season, but he's just back 1 at 39. Shapovalov, he's back. He's up 5 to 35 in the world. Tsitsipas is back 133. So a couple of top 10s on the ATP side that have taken regressions. Look, Macaque, he's back. He's steady at 31, but has been higher. Top 30 now. Most things are the same, just a little bit of movement here and there. No newcomers so far. Look, Paul's steady at 24, for example. Darderi's, he's up 1 to 21. Lehecka's is back 1 to 22. Rune's back 118. Kakanova's up 117. Rublev, Davidovich, Fokina have traded places 14, 15 respectively. And then we've got Rudd at 13, Draper at 12, Medvedev at 11. Top 10 is the same, just a little bit of a shuffle. So Diminaur's back up 2 to 6 where he was, just a bit of a shuffle there. Felix is back 1 to 7, Fritz is back 1 to 8. But otherwise, top 10, Bublik, Shelton, Fritz, Auger-Aliassime, Diminaur, Mazzetti, Zverev, Djokovic, Sinner, and Alcaraz. And that's it. That is the rankings on the ATP Tour. So we have managed to do this week Qatar WTA Tour, Dallas, Amro, Argentina, catch up on the rankings and share those changeover segments with you. And I've been able to jam-pack it into a more condensed episode. So I hope that has worked. I think a future episode is going to be a little bit longer. We'll see how we go. Or maybe I'll be able to condense them for you as well. Let me know feedback-wise how you find the more condensed episodes at times. Where I do try to rush through some parts, some earlier rounds, if we can, to make them more jam-packed. All right, but that's it for this week's episode. So thank you so much for listening. To grab your copy of one of my 14 books, you can find them on AIM International or Amazon. So again, irrespective of where you're based in the world. For any comments or questions, head to AIM8 or Topic Thread, or leave comments directly on YouTube or Spotify. To interact with Beyond Top 10 Tennis, catch up on our blogs, or to sign up to my newsletter, head to AIM International. And remember to check out Pink Octopus Books to Spruik. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, like, share, and all of the above. Beyond Top 10 Tennis exists for you, so please consider sharing us with those you know near and far. And look, if you're serious about heading towards the top 10 or want to know what you're missing to secure that maiden Grand Slam or more, don't be shy, come and say hi. All right, on that note, thank you so much for listening. I am so incredibly grateful. I'm your host, Dr. Ashley Morgan Berge, and this is Beyond Top 10 Tennis, and I'll see you next time.